It was, I think, the late winter, early spring of 1976 when the question was posed to me, and at that time I had no idea or understanding of what it really meant until several years later and many experiences. I was a senior at New Brunswick Theological Seminary in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and would be graduating that May with a Master's of Divinity degree. At the same time, I was in conversation with a number of churches who were seeking seminary graduates to come be their pastors. This weekend happened to be the second time that I was visiting with the Bern and the Beaver Dam Reformed churches. And it was during the interview time of the weekend that the question was asked, if you become our pastor, will you join the local fire company? To me, that question came way out from left field, and all sorts of strange thoughts went running through my mind. Thoughts like, is there a hidden meaning behind this question? Is there some kind of an understanding between the church and the fire company? What does being a member of the fire company have to do with being the pastor of the church? Is there a right or wrong answer to the question? Is there a good or a better answer? Trying to bide myself a little bit more time, I asked the person who asked me the question if becoming the pastor was, if becoming a member of the fire department was a prerequisite to being the pastor of the church. To which he said, no. It's just that a number of the former pastors had been involved with the fire company, and one had even been chief several years ago. Feeling a lot more at ease, I said I probably would join the fire company should I become the pastor, but with only the understanding that my role as pastor would be first and foremost. My work with the fire company would always be secondary. As I said, it was several years later before the real meaning of the question began to be realized by me. And that didn't happen all at once. It wasn't like one of those big aha moments when the light bulb suddenly comes on and you see things more clearly and understand them more fully. It was gradual and over a period of time and with a number of experiences and encounters that I would describe as, when in doubt, call the pastor. One such experience was in the middle of the winter on a cold, snowy day when the only place you want to be is in the house with a cup of coffee, but the phone rings and you answer the phone and the person on the other end says, Pastor, I have a problem that I'm hoping you can help me with. Okay, I say, what's going on? Well, I'm feeling really silly right now. I'm down here in Albany at work, and I don't remember if I closed the door to the wood stove after I filled it before leaving for work. I can't get away from my job to go up and look on it. My wife is at work, the kids are in school, and I'm wondering if you could just go there and look to see whether I closed the door or not. And I said, oh, sure, no problem. I can do that right now. And he said, great, I would really appreciate that. And if the front door's not unlocked, here's how you can find the key. And so off I go, zipping in my car down the road, pulling into the driveway, making my way up the walk to the front door, and in I go. And there's the wood stove. But right in front of the wood stove is the biggest black lab that I think I have ever seen, who slowly raises his head and looks at me as if to say, who are you? And what are you doing disturbing my nap? And then as he stands up, barkingly says, you don't belong here. Fortunately, I can see that the door to the wood stove is closed and the latch is down, and I don't need to spend any more time there. So off I go back home, and I call him on the phone and give him the assurance that he did close the door to the wood stove, but that he never told me about the dog. And he laughed, sort of, and said, he's all bark and no bite, and he would have just loved it if you would have stayed for a while to scratch behind his ears. Another such call came in the middle of the summer one year, and this came, it was a lot more serious than the other. A neighbor lady was calling me quite upset, and I could tell that she was crying as she was speaking with me on the phone. She was a mom with 2 young kids at home, maybe 2 and 5 years old. Her husband was gone for the day and he wouldn't be back, and she didn't exactly know when, but could I come over and help with this problem that she just discovered? And so I said, sure, I'll be right over, and I walked down the street, and that's when she showed me the rat in the trap at the bottom of the stairs and very emphatically said, there is no way I am dealing with that. To dispose of the rat in the trap took less than 5 minutes, but then to sit and listen to how that experience was seemingly the last straw for her on that hot summer day with 2 little kids at home by herself was a much longer conversation. Another one of those many when in doubt call the pastor experiences frequently came from my neighbor and dear friend across the street. It seemed like every time her family would come for a weekend visit, maybe an hour or so after they left, she would call me on the phone and say, Pastor, I hate to bother you, but there's something not right here, and I'm wondering if you could come over and just look at it. One time it was the toilet that wouldn't stop running after it had been flushed, and so I tinkered with it for a while. Another time she thought she smelled gas from the gas stove in the kitchen. Another time there was a noise she thought she heard down in the cellar, and could I just go down there and listen? Okay, so it took me 3 or 4 such experiences before I realized she was just feeling lonely again and wanted somebody to talk to, having had her whole family there for the weekend, and now they were gone and it was just her home alone once more. Like I said, this understanding of if you become our pastor, will you join the fire department, unfolded slowly over the period of years and the several experiences. This was the community into which I had come. It was being available and being aware and being involved. And actually, only one of those 3 stories had folks that had a deep connection with the church I served. I just knew of all the rest from being out and about and in the community. There was another understanding that unfolded in this meeting, and it happened quite by accident as one person told another person of their rescue call to me. And so this happened one day when a mom came home and called me on the phone and said, I've discovered this bat that's flying around in my dining room, and the kids are about ready to get off to school, and I heard at coffee hour a couple of Sundays ago that you had done a similar eviction for another person in town, and could you come over and help out? So tennis racket in hand, I walked down the street, and for about the next hour or so, I chased this scared little creature around the living room. Or maybe it chased me, I don't know. While listening to the 2 boys begging their mom to let them in so they could watch. And in the meantime, I'm racking my brain trying to figure out what day it was in seminary that I missed the class on how to evict a bat from someone's living room, or how to rescue the neighborhood kids from the rabid raccoon that seems to be making its way in from the edge of the woods as they're getting off the bus, and the only thing you have close to a weapon is the garden shovel. But the neighbor called on the phone and said, Pastor, you've got to do something now. This is community. This is involvement in the life of the community, just like the fire department when the alarm rings and they drop everything and go to where they are needed. So I did, as I answered every single phone call and responded with what I could. No, they don't teach you these things in seminary. They don't hardly even talk about them. But nevertheless, they are the ministry of care and compassion, of understanding and availability, of a willingness to serve anyone at any time. And it isn't just the pastor who happens to be there most of the time during the day. It is everyone. It is everyone who wants to be part of the community. And it doesn't matter either if every problem is solved. I got one phone call that I just couldn't and wouldn't even attempt. Hey, Pastor, do you think you could help me find a wife? Some places you just don't go. It doesn't matter whether the problem is solved as much as being available, being willing to listen, being present, because that's what community is. I did join the volunteer fire company, and I still am their chaplain and minister to their needs in that way. They also invited me to get involved with the rescue squad, and from there, coach Little League, work with the Boy Scouts, volunteer at the school, and even for the town, because that too is community. Thank you.